The red sun of New Montana was setting behind the rocky hills when Jake Miller finished loading the last container of crystal ore onto the transport hover truck. Sweat dripped down his face as he wiped his hands on his work pants. The mining site was quiet now except for the hum of machines and the distant calls of native creatures in the wilderness. Jake had been working on New Montana for 3 years. The planet was harsh and dangerous, but the pay was good. The colony needed tough people who could handle the difficult work of mining rare crystals from deep underground. Most of the miners were human, but they worked alongside several alien species who had joined the colony for various reasons. The Altarians helped with medical work and research. The Kelvons were excellent engineers who kept the machines running. The Zephyrians handled communication systems with their natural ability to process multiple signals at once. Everyone worked together to make the colony successful, though it was not always easy. As Jake walked toward the main settlement, he heard a low, growling sound coming from behind a large boulder near the mining pit. He stopped and listened carefully. The sound was weak and pained, not the usual aggressive roar of a healthy creature. Jake knew he should report it to security and let them handle whatever was making the noise. Colony rules were clear about approaching unknown creatures without backup, but something in that sound made him think the animal was hurt and needed help. He picked up a piece of metal pipe from the ground and slowly walked toward the boulder. The growling grew louder as he got closer. When he looked around the rock, he saw a large Vorthak lying on its side with blood on its thick fur. Vorthaks were native to New Montana. They looked like giant bears but had 6 legs and tough skin, covered in coarse hair. The colonists had been trying to train them to help with heavy work because they were incredibly strong. Most Vorthaks stayed away from humans, but this one was clearly in trouble. The creature was about 8 feet long and probably weighed more than Jake's hover truck. Its breathing was shallow and quick. One of its back legs was twisted at a strange angle, probably broken. A deep cut ran along its side, and Jake could see that it had lost a lot of blood. Jake set down the metal pipe and held up his hands to show he meant no harm. The Vorthak watched him with large yellow eyes but did not try to move. It was too weak to run away or attack. "Easy there, big guy," Jake said in a soft voice. "I'm not going to hurt you. Looks like something already did that." He moved closer, step by step. The Vorthak made a low rumbling sound but did not seem frightened. Jake could see that the animal was dying from its injuries. He had seen enough hurt animals back on Earth to know when one was beyond help, but maybe he could at least make it more comfortable in its final moments. Jake knelt down about 3 feet away from the creature's head. He could smell the metallic scent of blood and the musky odor of the Vorthak's fur. The animal's breathing was getting weaker. "What happened to you, friend?" Jake asked quietly. "Did you get in a fight with something bigger?" The Vorthak tried to lift its head but could barely manage it. Jake saw intelligence in those yellow eyes and something that looked almost like gratitude. The creature seemed to understand that he was trying to help. Jake slowly reached out his hand toward the Vorthak's head. He wanted to comfort the dying animal, even though he knew it was risky. Vorthaks had sharp teeth and powerful jaws that could easily crush bones. The creature did not pull away when Jake's hand touched its fur. Instead, it made a soft sound that was almost like a purr. Jake gently stroked the area behind its ears just like he used to do with his dog back on Earth. For several minutes, they stayed like that. Jake continued to pet the Vorthak while the animal's breathing gradually became easier. The comfort seemed to help with its pain. Then everything changed in an instant. Another Vorthak appeared from behind a different boulder. This one was healthy and angry. It charged toward Jake and the wounded animal with a loud roar. Jake tried to jump backward, but he was not fast enough. The attacking Vorthak thought Jake was hurting its injured companion. It grabbed Jake's left arm with its massive jaws and bit down hard. Jake felt the creature's teeth sink deep into his flesh. The pain was incredible, like being struck by lightning and burned by fire at the same time. Jake yelled and tried to pull his arm free, but the Vorthak's grip was too strong. He could feel his bones creaking under the pressure. Blood ran down his arm and dripped onto the rocky ground. The wounded Vorthak made a weak crying sound, as if it was trying to tell the other one to stop, after what felt like hours but was probably only seconds. The attacking Vorthak released Jake's arm and stepped back. It looked confused, sniffing the air around Jake and its injured companion. Jake stumbled backward, holding his bleeding arm against his chest. The healthy Vorthak watched him for a moment, then went to its wounded friend. It nuzzled the injured animal gently before looking back at Jake. There was no more anger in its eyes, only what seemed like understanding. Jake wrapped his torn shirt around his arm to stop the bleeding. The bite was deep and painful, but he did not think any bones were broken. He had been lucky. The healthy Vorthak picked up its injured companion carefully in its jaws and carried it away into the wilderness. Jake watched them disappear among the rocks and bushes. He hoped the wounded one would survive, but he doubted it. Jake walked back to the colony holding his bandaged arm. It hurt badly, but he had experienced worse injuries during his years of mining work. He would clean it up, get some medical attention, and be back to work tomorrow. He had no idea that this simple act of kindness toward a dying animal would soon change everything for humans throughout the galaxy. Jake walked through the colony's main entrance with his makeshift bandage already soaked with blood. The automatic doors slid open as he approached the medical center. Most of the colonists were having dinner in the main hall, so the corridors were mostly empty. The medical center was small but well equipped. It served not just the human miners but also the various alien species that lived and worked in the colony. Dr. HFY was the only medical officer they had. She was an Altarian who had come to New Montana 5 years ago to study the local wildlife. Dr. HFY was about 7 feet tall with pale blue skin and 4 large eyes arranged around her head. Her people were known throughout the galaxy for their medical skills and their ability to treat different species. She had saved many lives in the colony, both human and alien. Jake found her in the main medical room, organizing supplies in a cabinet. When she turned around and saw his bloody arm, all 4 of her eyes widened with concern. "Jake Miller," she said in her careful English. The translation device around her neck helped her speak human languages, but she still had trouble with some words. "What has happened to your arm?" "Got bit by a Vorthak," Jake said, sitting down on the examination table, trying to help an injured one. Another one showed up and didn't like what it saw. Dr. HFY quickly gathered her medical tools and began unwrapping Jake's torn shirt from his arm. When she saw the wound, she became very still. Her 4 eyes focused on the bite marks with intense concentration. "Jake Miller," she said slowly, "this is very serious. Much more serious than you understand." The bite was deep, with 4 clear puncture marks where the Vorthak's canine teeth had sunk into his flesh. The wounds were still bleeding, and the skin around them was already starting to turn a dark purple color. Dr. HFY immediately began taking pictures of the wound with her medical scanner. She collected samples of Jake's blood and the saliva that was still visible around the bite marks. Her movements were quick and precise, but Jake could see worry in her alien features. "Doc, it's just a bite," Jake said. "I've had worse. Remember when the mining drill kicked back and nearly took my leg off?" "No, Jake Miller, this is not just a bite." Dr. HFY connected her scanner to the main computer and began running tests on the samples. Vorthak bites carry the crimson plague. It is a toxin in their saliva that kills other creatures. Jake watched as the test results appeared on the computer screen. He could not understand the alien symbols and medical terms, but he could see that Dr. HFY was becoming more upset as she read them. "How long ago did this happen?" she asked. "About an hour ago. Maybe a little more." Dr. HFY's hand shook as she input more commands into the computer. She ran the same test 3 times, checking and rechecking the results. Finally, she stepped back from the machine and looked at Jake with all 4 eyes. "Jake Miller, you are going to die," she said quietly. "The Crimson Plague has never been survived by any creature. Not human, not Altarian, not any of the 47 species we have studied. The toxin destroys cells from the inside. Most creatures die within 6 hours." Jake looked down at his arm. The purple color was spreading, but he felt fine except for the pain from the bite itself. He was tired, but that was normal after a long day of work. "Well, that's unfortunate," Jake said. "But I feel okay right now. Maybe I'm lucky." "There is no luck with Crimson Plague," Dr. HFY said. "Your blood already shows high levels of the toxin. Your body temperature is rising. Soon your organs will begin to shut down. She immediately sent an emergency message to Lisa Brooks, the colony administrator, and Danny Walsh, the head of security. Both arrived at the medical center within minutes. Lisa Brooks was a tough woman in her 50s who had helped establish the colony. She had dealt with many crises over the years and always stayed calm under pressure. Danny Walsh was a former military man who handled all security issues for the colony. "What's the situation, Doc?" Lisa asked as she entered the medical room. Dr. Zexhai explained what had happened and showed them the test results. Lisa's face became grim as she listened. Danny immediately began planning quarantine procedures in case the toxin could spread to other humans. "How long does he have?" Lisa asked. "Based on studies of other species, perhaps 4 more hours," Dr. Zexhai said. "I'm sorry, Jake Miller. I wish there was something I could do." Jake sat quietly on the examination table, listening to them discuss his death. It seemed unreal. He had survived dangerous mining accidents, equipment failures, and severe weather on New Montana. The idea that a simple animal bite would kill him seemed strange. "You know," Jake said, interrupting their conversation, "this is kind of funny." All 3 of them turned to look at him. "What's funny about dying?" Danny asked. Jake rolled up the sleeve on his right arm, showing them several old scars. "See these marks here? Same kind of bite. Same Vorthak, actually. Happened last week when I was checking the perimeter fence near Sector 7. Dr. Zexhai stared at the old scars in shock. Lisa and Danny moved closer to examine Jake's other arm. The bite marks were clearly from a Vorthak, and they had healed cleanly. "That is impossible," Dr. Zexhai whispered. "If you were bitten by a Vorthak last week, you should have died last week." "Well, I didn't," Jake said with a shrug. "Hurt like hell, but I put some antiseptic on it and went back to work. Never felt sick or anything." Dr. Zexhai immediately began taking new blood samples and running different tests. She scanned the old bite marks and compared them to the fresh wound. Her 4 eyes moved rapidly as she studied the data. "Your blood shows antibodies," she said in amazement. "Your body has been fighting the Crimson Plague toxin for a week. Not only fighting it, but winning." Lisa sat down heavily in a chair. "Are you telling me that Jake is immune to this plague?" "I do not know," Dr. Zexhai said. "This has never happened before. No creature has ever survived Crimson Plague, let alone been bitten twice." Jake looked at his fresh bite wound. The purple color had stopped spreading, and the bleeding had almost stopped. "So am I going to die or not?" Dr. Zexhai checked her instruments again. Jake's vital signs were stable. His body temperature was normal. The toxin levels in his blood were actually decreasing. "I do not think you are going to die, Jake Miller," she said slowly. "I think you are going to live. And I think you may have just changed everything we know about humans and the Crimson Plague." 2 days passed, and Jake felt perfectly fine. He stayed in the medical center for observation, but he was getting restless. Dr. Zexhai checked his blood every few hours and ran test after test. Each time, the results showed the same thing. The Crimson Plague toxin was completely gone from his system. "This should not be possible," Dr. Zexhai said for the 100th time as she looked at the latest test results. "Your body has not just survived the toxin. It has learned to destroy it." Jake was sitting up in the medical bed, eating breakfast and reading news reports on his tablet. "Doc, I feel great. Can I go back to work now?" "No, Jake Miller. You must stay here. Scientists are coming to study you." Word about Jake's survival had spread quickly through the colony's communication network. Within hours, the news reached other human settlements on nearby planets. Medical researchers throughout the sector were amazed by the reports. On the 3rd day, 2 xenobiologists arrived from the research station on Kepler 442c. Dr. Amy Foster was a human specialist in alien diseases, and Dr. Carl Lopez studied how different species adapted to hostile environments. They had traveled for 3 days straight to reach New Montana. Dr. Foster was a short woman with gray hair who spoke very fast when she was excited. Dr. Lopez was tall and quiet, but his eyes lit up when he saw Jake's medical data. Both scientists had spent years studying why certain toxins killed some species but not others. "Mr. Miller, Dr. Foster said as she shook Jake's hand. You may be the most important human in the galaxy right now. I'm just a miner, Jake said. I dig holes and pull out crystals. No, you are much more than that, Dr. Lopez said. He was setting up advanced medical equipment that he had brought from the research station. You have survived something that kills every other known species. We need to understand how. The two scientists worked with Dr. HFY to run new tests on Jake. They took more blood samples, scanned his organs, and even examined his DNA. Jake sat patiently through all the procedures, though he was getting tired of being poked and prodded. After 6 hours of testing, the scientists gathered in Dr. HFY's office to discuss their findings. Jake was allowed to listen, though he did not understand most of what they said. The Crimson Plague toxin works by breaking down cellular walls, Dr. Foster explained, to the group. It gets into a creature's bloodstream and literally dissolves the barriers between cells. This causes massive organ failure. But Jake's cells are different, Dr. Lopez added. When the toxin attacked his cellular walls, his body responded by making them stronger. His immune system learned to recognize the toxin and created antibodies to neutralize it. Dr. HFY looked at her computer screen, which showed detailed images of Jake's blood cells. His white blood cells have changed. They are larger and more active than normal human cells. It is as if his body has evolved in just 1 week. Exactly, Dr. Foster said with excitement. Humans have something that no other species we've studied possesses. Your immune systems can adapt to threats that would kill other creatures outright. Jake scratched his head. Are you saying that getting bit by that Vorthak made me stronger? In a way, yes, Dr. Lopez said. Your body learned from the first bite. When you were bitten again, your immune system was ready. Not only did it fight off the toxin, but it used the experience to become even better at protecting you. Dr. HFY was quiet for a long moment. If this is true for Jake Miller, could it be true for other humans? The scientists looked at each other with growing excitement. Dr. Foster immediately began making calls to research stations throughout the sector. Dr. Lopez started planning new experiments to test the theory. We need to study other colonists, Dr. Foster said. People who have been exposed to local toxins and diseases. If Jake's case is not unique, this could change everything. Over the next week, volunteers from the colony came to the medical center to be tested. The results were amazing. Pete Johnson, who worked in the deep mines, had developed resistance to the acidic gases that came from underground vents. Kate Wilson, an engineer who maintained the atmospheric processors, could handle radiation levels that would make most humans sick. Tony Rodriguez, the colony's cook, had been accidentally poisoning himself for months with local plants that he used in his recipes. The plants contained toxins that should have killed him, but his body had learned to process them safely. He had actually become healthier over time. Every human we have tested shows some form of adaptation, Dr. Lopez told Lisa Brooks during a meeting in the colony's main conference room. Your people are not just surviving in this hostile environment. You are thriving. Lisa looked around the table at the assembled scientists and colonists. What does this mean for us? For humans in general? Dr. HFY spoke up. It means that humans may be the most biologically adaptable species in known space. Other species rely on technology to survive in hostile environments. Humans seem to be able to adapt biologically. Jake was also at the meeting, finally released from medical observation. He was more interested in the sandwich he was eating than the scientific discussion, but he listened politely. The implications are enormous, Dr. Foster said. If humans can adapt to toxins and diseases that kill other species, you could explore and colonize planets that no one else can survive on. More than that, Dr. Lopez added, you could potentially help other species overcome biological threats that have plagued them for centuries. Lisa leaned back in her chair. So you're saying that Jake getting bit by an alien bear thing might be the key to humanity's future in space? That is exactly what we are saying, Dr. HFY replied. Jake finished his sandwich and wiped his hands on his work pants. Well, that's nice and all, but I've got crystals to mine. Can I get back to work now? Everyone in the room laughed, but they were also thinking about what this discovery meant. Word was already spreading to other colonies, other planets, other species throughout the galaxy. Soon, everyone would know that humans were different. They were survivors in a way that no other species could match. And it all started with one miner who was too stubborn to let a fatal bite keep him down. 3 weeks after Jake's second Vorthak bite, everything changed for the new Montana colony. Ships began arriving almost daily, carrying visitors from across the galaxy. Scientists, diplomats, reporters, and curious aliens all wanted to meet the human who had survived the Crimson Plague. Jake was not happy about the attention. He preferred working in the mines where it was quiet and he could focus on his job. Now he could barely walk through the colony without someone wanting to interview him or take his picture. "I just want to dig crystals," Jake complained to Lisa Brooks as they sat in her office. Outside the window, they could see 3 more ships landing at the colony's small spaceport. "Why can't these people leave me alone?" "Because you've become famous, Jake," Lisa said. "The whole galaxy is talking about human biological adaptation. You're the proof that we're different from every other species." Dr. Zexhai entered the office carrying a stack of communication requests. "Jake Miller, the Galactic Medical Council, wants to invite you to their headquarters on Centauri Prime. They wish to study you in their advanced laboratories." "No thanks," Jake said immediately. "I'm not going anywhere. This is my home." But the requests kept coming. The Zephyrian Empire sent Ambassador Krilth, a tall being with silver skin and no visible eyes. The Zephyrians had been fighting a disease that destroyed their crops for over 50 years. Millions of their people were starving because they could not grow food safely. Ambassador Krilth met with Jake and the colony leadership in the main conference room. The ambassador spoke through a translation device that made his voice sound like music. "Human Jake Miller," the ambassador said. "My people have heard of your immunity to biological threats. We have a plague that kills our food plants. Our scientists believe that humans might be able to help us find a solution." Jake shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "I don't know anything about plants. I'm a miner." "But your people adapt," the ambassador continued. "Perhaps human scientists, working with plants affected by our plague, could develop natural resistance. Your species might succeed where ours has failed." Dr. Foster, who had stayed on New Montana to continue her research, leaned forward. "It's possible. If we could expose human volunteers to small amounts of the plant plague, they might develop immunity. Then we could study how their bodies fight it." "I will not risk human lives for our problems," Ambassador Krilth said quickly. "But if volunteers were willing and if the experiments were safe, it could save millions of Zephyrian lives." Similar requests came from other species. The Crystalline Collective sent representatives asking for help with radiation exposure. There, people were made of living crystal, but certain types of solar radiation could crack their bodies and kill them. They wanted to explore star systems that they could not safely visit. The Kelvin Confederation had problems with a bacteria that ate through their metal-based biology. The Altarian Medical Alliance wanted to study human adaptation to help treat diseases that affected multiple species. Jake found himself at the center of discussions that could affect billions of beings throughout the galaxy. It was overwhelming for someone who just wanted to do his job and be left alone. "This is getting out of hand," Jake told Dr. Zexhai as she ran her daily medical check on him. "I never asked to be the spokesperson for humanity." "You do not have to be," Dr. Zexhai said gently. "But you have shown something important about your species. Humans do not just survive threats. You overcome them and become stronger." Meanwhile, Dr. Foster and Dr. Lopez were studying other humans throughout the sector. They discovered that Jake's case was not unique. On every human colony, people had adapted to local hazards in remarkable ways. On the desert planet Sahara 7, human colonists had developed resistance to extreme heat and dehydration. Their bodies had learned to conserve water more efficiently than baseline humans. On the ice world Frostbite, humans had adapted to extreme cold and low oxygen levels. Most amazing of all, these adaptations seemed to be passed on to children. Second-generation colonists were even better adapted than their parents. Human biology was evolving at an incredible rate. "We're not just adapting as individuals," Dr. Foster explained during a colony-wide meeting. We're adapting as a species. Each generation of humans becomes more resilient than the last. The news spread throughout human space and beyond. Earth's government began receiving formal requests for partnerships and assistance from dozens of alien civilizations. What had started as humanity's struggle to find its place among advanced alien species was becoming recognition of humans as uniquely valuable partners. Jake watched all of this unfold with mixed feelings. He was proud that humans were being recognized as important, but he did not like being the center of attention. He had started sneaking out to the mines early in the morning to avoid the visitors and reporters. One morning, as Jake was loading crystal ore into containers, he heard familiar growling sounds. He looked up to see 3 Vorthax watching him from about 50 feet away. One of them was the creature he had helped weeks ago. Its injuries had healed, and it looked healthy and strong. Jake set down his tools and slowly approached the Vorthax. Instead of running away or attacking, they remained calm. The injured one he had helped came forward and gently nudged his arm with its massive head. "Hey there, old friend," Jake said softly, reaching out to pet the creature's fur. "Feeling better?" The other Vorthax approached as well. Soon Jake was surrounded by 3 of the most dangerous predators on New Montana, and they were acting like friendly dogs. They had somehow learned that he was not a threat. Dr. Zexhai found him there an hour later, sitting on the ground with the 3 Vorthax lying around him like giant pets. She took pictures with her medical scanner, amazed by what she was seeing. "Jake Miller," she said quietly, "I think you have found another way that humans are different." "What do you mean?" "Other species fear the Vorthax. Even we Altarians who try to understand all creatures keep our distance, but they trust you. They know somehow that you will not hurt them." Jake scratched behind the ear of the nearest Vorthax, which made a sound like purring. "Maybe they can smell that I've been bitten before. Maybe they know I'm not afraid of them. Or maybe," Dr. Zexhai said thoughtfully, "they recognize something in you that other species cannot see. Something that makes humans special." That evening, Jake finally agreed to speak at a colony meeting with all the visiting diplomats and scientists. He was not comfortable with public speaking, but he felt he owed it to his fellow humans to try. "I'm not special," Jake told the assembled group. "I'm just a guy who digs holes for a living, but I guess humans are different from other species in ways we're still learning about." He looked around the room at the various alien faces watching him. "We don't give up easy. We don't let things kill us if we can help it. And we try to help others when they're in trouble, even if it means getting hurt ourselves." Jake paused, thinking about the wounded Vorthax that had started everything. Maybe that's what makes us useful to the galaxy. Not that we're the smartest or the strongest, but that we're too stubborn to quit and too caring to walk away when someone needs help. The room was silent for a moment. Then Ambassador Krilth began the musical sound that was Zephyrian applause, and soon all the other aliens joined in with their own expressions of approval. Jake Miller, the miner who just wanted to be left alone, had accidentally become the voice of humanity's new role in the galaxy. 6 months had passed since Jake's second Vorthax bite, and New Montana had become the most important human colony in the galaxy. What started as a small mining settlement now hosted the first interspecies biological cooperation center. Ships from dozens of worlds arrived weekly, bringing scientists, diplomats, and hopeful visitors. Jake had finally found a way to deal with his fame. He established the Human Vorthax Partnership Program, teaching other colonists and visitors how to work safely with the dangerous creatures. It was work he enjoyed because it kept him outdoors and away from the constant meetings and interviews. This morning, Jake was training a group of 12 new arrivals. 6 were humans from other colonies, 3 were young Altarian scientists, 2 were Kelvon engineers, and 1 was a Zephyrian diplomat who wanted to understand human methods. "The most important thing to remember," Jake told the group as they stood near the Vorthax habitat area, "is that these creatures are not pets. They are powerful, intelligent beings who deserve respect." The habitat area had been built specifically for the program. It was a large fenced area where several Vorthax live safely while learning to work with humans. The 3 Vorthax that Jake had first befriended were the leaders of the group, helping to train both humans and other Vorthax. "How do we approach them without getting bitten?" asked Maria Santos, a new human colonist from the mining world of Kepler 438b. You don't try to avoid getting bitten, Jake said with a smile. You accept that it might happen and prepare for it. The Vorthax can sense fear. If you're terrified of being hurt, they'll know it and won't trust you. One of the Altarian scientists, Dr. Veltar, raised her hand. But Jake Miller, the Crimson Plague is still fatal to most species. How can non-humans safely participate? Dr. Zexai, who was observing the training session, stepped forward. We have developed a treatment based on Jake's antibodies. It is not perfect, but it can help other species survive a Vorthak bite long enough for medical treatment. Jake walked toward the fence where his original Vorthak friend was waiting. The massive creature had grown even larger over the past months and had become the unofficial leader of the habitat group. Jake had named him Bruno, though he had never told anyone else the name. Watch how I approach, Jake said to his students. Slow movements, hands visible, calm voice. Bruno here has been bitten me 4 more times since we started this program. Each time, we both learned something new. Jake opened the gate and entered the habitat. Bruno immediately came over and gently head-butted Jake's shoulder, which was the Vorthak way of saying hello. Jake scratched behind the creature's ears and Bruno made his deep purring sound. The key is building trust over time, Jake explained as he worked with Bruno. You can't rush it. You have to prove that you're not a threat, and they have to prove the same to you. A young Vorthak, one that had been born in the habitat, came running over. It was only about 4 feet long but already weighed as much as a grown human. It playfully jumped up and knocked Jake to the ground, then started licking his face with its large tongue. The watching group laughed as Jake tried to push the enthusiastic young Vorthak away. This is trouble, Jake said, using the nickname he had given the young creature. She's still learning proper manners. Is it safe for us to enter the habitat? Asked Ben Cooper, one of the human miners. Not yet, Jake said, standing up and brushing dirt off his clothes. You need at least 2 weeks of training before you can work directly with them. But you can start by helping with feeding and maintenance from outside the fence. Over the next hour, Jake demonstrated various techniques for working with the Vorthax. He showed how to read their body language, how to communicate with gestures, and how to stay calm when they became excited or aggressive. The most impressive part came when Jake had Bruno help him move a heavy piece of mining equipment. The Vorthak used its powerful jaws to grip a specially designed harness and easily lifted a container that would have required 3 humans and a mechanical loader. This is why the program is so valuable, Jake explained to the group. Vorthaks are incredibly strong and intelligent. With proper training, they can help with construction, mining, and heavy transport work. But more importantly, we're proving that different species can work together safely. After the training session, Jake walked with Dr. Zexai toward the colony's main building. They had developed a close friendship over the months, and she had become his advisor on all the scientific and diplomatic aspects of his work. The Galactic Medical Council wants to expand the program to other worlds, Dr. Zexai told him. They are impressed by the success here and want to establish similar cooperation programs throughout human space. That's good, Jake said. But I'm not interested in traveling around the galaxy. This is my home. You do not need to leave, Dr. Zexai assured him. Other humans can lead the expansion programs. You have proven that it works. Now others can learn from your methods. They entered the main building where Lisa Brooks was meeting with representatives from the Earth Colonial Administration. The conversation stopped when Jake and Dr. Zexai walked in. Perfect timing, Lisa said. Jake, these people want to talk to you about establishing training centers on 50 different worlds. Jake sighed and sat down at the conference table. Even after 6 months, he still felt uncomfortable in formal meetings, but he had learned that his cooperation was important for the future of human-alien relations. Mr. Miller, said Director Patricia Kim from the Colonial Administration. Your work here has changed how the galaxy sees humanity. We're no longer just another species trying to find our place. We're partners who can help solve problems that have challenged other civilizations for centuries. The Zephyrian crop plague has been contained using methods developed from your research, added Dr. Rachel Wong, the administration's chief xenobiologist. The Crystalline Collective has successfully explored 3 new star systems with human Assistance. The Kelvon Confederation has made breakthrough progress against their bacterial infections. Jake listened politely but kept glancing out the window toward the Vorthak habitat. He could see Bruno and the others playing in the afternoon sun, and he wished he was out there with them instead of sitting in another meeting. "What do you need from me?" Jake asked directly. "Your endorsement and guidance," Director Kim said. "Help us train the trainers. Share your methods so others can replicate your success. And maybe," Dr. Zexhai added gently, "help us understand what makes humans special, not just biologically but in terms of character and spirit." Jake thought about that for a moment. Over the past months, he had seen humans working alongside aliens in ways that seemed impossible before. They were not just surviving in hostile environments, they were thriving and helping others thrive as well. "I think it's because we don't give up," Jake said finally. "When something tries to kill us, we figure out how to make us stronger, instead. When someone needs help, we help them even if it's dangerous. And when people say something is impossible, we try it anyway just to see what happens." He looked around the table at the assembled humans and Dr. Zexhai. Maybe that's what the galaxy needs. Not people who are afraid of getting hurt, but people who are willing to take risks to make things better. "That is exactly what the galaxy needs," Dr. Zexhai said with conviction. "And that is why humanity will succeed among the stars." 2 years later, human Vorthak partnership programs operated on 37 worlds. The techniques developed at New Montana had been adapted for working with dangerous species throughout human space. Humans had become known as the species that could make friends with anything and survive exposure to any threat. Jake still worked at the original program on New Montana, training new groups every month. He had been bitten by Vorthaks 14 more times and had developed immunity to several other local toxins through various accidents and exposures. But more importantly, he had proven that humans brought something unique to the galaxy, not superior technology or ancient wisdom, but the stubborn refusal to accept that anything was impossible, and the willingness to risk everything to help others. The human reputation spread from world to world. They were the species that got bitten by deadly creatures and shrugged it off, that made friends with monsters, and that somehow found a way to turn every disaster into an opportunity for growth. And it all started with one miner, who was too stubborn to let a fatal bite keep him down.